Update. Am I the a-hole for not caring about the company image after my boss stole from me? Original post. I had to complete an internship for my degree and decided to join a startup to learn. But instead, I had to figure out everything on my own with no guidance and ended up being a glorified salesman instead of actually learning. Since it was paid $150 a month, not much to be honest, and opportunities were rare during COVID, I went along with it, even with the ridiculous targets he set. I was the best performer, but even I could only reach 10% of the target. As part of my internship, I had to handle social media completely on my own and shoot ads on my days off using equipment I had borrowed from friends. 5 months in, he told us at the end of the month that we wouldn't be paid unless we met his targets. I politely told him I would be leaving and pointed out that I wouldn't even be able to meet clients without gas money, as 25% of my pay went toward fuel. He got upset and started talking about how he had paid my salary, took us out for drinks every month. He paid for the food, but we had to buy our own drinks, and how his grandpa was dying and he needed me. He accused me of leaving him when things got tough and claimed I was only in it for the money. The other employees left within the next month. Before I left, I dropped off a hard drive containing all my files at his sister's place. It was worth about $40, which was significant for a college student. 3 months passed as I was busy with my report, and when I asked for it back, he claimed not to have it, and then cut the call. Half an hour later, his sister called me, swearing she didn't remember me dropping off anything and saying I was always dropping off stuff. He then told me I had sent the files over email, which was a lie, as I had text messages proving he had specifically asked me to drop them off at his house. He then argued that even if I had given it to them, it was my responsibility to come and take it back. He went on about how little my work meant to him anyway, and that it wasn't worth a penny of his time. Unfortunately, apart from a screenshot, I didn't have any proof that I had given them the hard drive. I told a few of my friends about the situation, and they started commenting on the company's Instagram, asking him to return it, calling him a bad boss, and saying the product was terrible. Many of them had actually bought it for my sake. The Instagram page is very small, barely 200 followers, so any comments stand out. Now he's calling me, demanding that I take down the comments because they're hurting the company's image, and accusing me of using him and never caring about the company. He's also threatening legal action for slander. Am I the a-hole for not caring about the company's image? Should I tell my friends to back off? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. I get your frustration and it seems like a bad company. Just one question, because I'm a little confused. Did his sister work for the company? No, she didn't. The company was run out of his house, with the ground floor acting as the office. I gave it to her because he wasn't at home at the time. Sorry for the confusion. Honestly, still not the a-hole, but not the brightest in hindsight to give company stuff to someone who doesn't work for the company. Just a life lesson, I guess, but doesn't change my judgment. Absolutely. Hindsight is 20/20. I guess I've always been too trusting. I will definitely not repeat this mistake, and I'll make sure to document everything if a similar situation ever comes up. I count myself lucky that I got off this cheaply, and that there weren't any important files on the hard drive. Okay, so your boss steals your personal belongings, tells you that you will not be paid, and then tries to guilt you into working for free? No, you are not required to care about the company's image. In fact, feel free to throw on their information about how he is trying to get you to work for free if you would like. Not the a-hole. Also, you mentioned that at the end of the month he said he wouldn't pay you for your work. Does that mean he is refusing to pay you for the time you already worked? Because that is literal wage theft, and you should report it as such. Looking back, I should have, but at that point, I was relieved to have an excuse to finally quit with minimal conflict. Besides, I didn't even have a formal contract or anything. I was getting paid through his personal Google Pay. I'm not even sure if that allows me to file for wage theft, since there's no documentation. I'm mainly worried about getting sued, to be honest. I'm finishing my degree in a couple of weeks, and don't want to be dealing with this while I should be applying for jobs. Don't worry about getting sued. Owner sounds too disorganized for that. Also, he'd have to explain how not only he didn't pay you, but it cost you out of pocket. Instead, take this as a lesson learned and go forth and prosper. Thank you. I asked my lawyer friend, and she advised to send a mail to the official email ID requesting for the hard disk, with a screenshot attached just in case, so I can have some documentation as well. Now for the update. I'm so very grateful for all of your responses. I really did feel bad, not about the hard disk, but about him saying that all the work I poured into the company was worthless. All of you genuinely made me feel better, and I'm very grateful to everyone who took a moment to respond. After my friends had posted, I got a message the next day from his sister, who said I was being inappropriate and that it showed a lot about my character. I thought this was rich coming from someone who was either A, willing to lie to my face just to save her brother's ego, or B, so completely inept that she didn't even remember me giving her the only thing I had ever given her. I really had to resist the urge to respond, since my lawyer friend warned me that they might be collecting evidence against me. Later that night, around 10 p.m., my dad got a call from my ex-boss, threatening me with legal action. My dad, God bless him, didn't even know who he was, and told him he shouldn't be disturbing people at night before cutting the call. Only afterward, when my mom asked who it was, did she inform him that it was my ex-boss. My dad just shrugged and went back to scrolling memes, which gave me a mild chuckle. My mother then asked me about the situation, and I explained everything he had done. She ended up calling him, and my ex-boss ended up pleading with her to stop the Instagram reviews. He even offered to come over and talk to me. She pointed out the hurtful comments he made about my work and the unpaid salary, before cutting him off after saying she would see what she could do. She then sat me down and told me I could choose to bear a grudge or forgive him. She said it was my decision, but she felt it was pointless to carry on, since his company seemed doomed anyway. At this point, I guess I'd had enough as well, and I decided to cut him some slack. I asked my friends to knock it off and thanked them for their support. I didn't ask them to delete their comments. My ex-boss could do that himself. Afterward, the venture capitalist who was investing in the startup apparently heard about the incident, scolded my boss, and even offered to compensate me for the hard disk. He was well aware of my work for the company and was skeptical of my ex-boss's description of the event. I'm fairly satisfied with how things have turned out, and even more than getting my hard disk back, I'm just happy to have gotten some sense of closure. For a month after leaving the job, I hadn't really slept well and I found it difficult to talk to new people, which was odd for me since I was a complete extrovert before that. I'm hoping it'll get better with time and that I'll be back to my usual self soon. Once again, thank you all for your support. I never saw, but did you inform your college of what he did? They need to know so they can remove your old boss from the list of places to intern. Yes, definitely. Save the next poor bugger the trouble. Great. Did you get the compensation? Haha, yep. Got the money deposited last night. Nice. You should perhaps talk to the investor and see if they are hiring. I did consider it, but at this point, I want to put this whole thing behind me and start afresh. Your boss has no business sense. That ship will probably sink with or without your involvement. Next story. Update. Am I the a-hole for taking my friend to court after she kicked me out of the bridal party for cutting my hair? Original post. My best friend is getting married this June, and I am one of the bridesmaids. Her bridesmaid trip is set for the end of May in Chicago. We will be driving there, and the trip will last 4 days. However, I no longer want to attend. We have already booked the Airbnb, which was $176 per person, and I have paid my portion. Her demands for the wedding have gotten out of hand. The wedding itself spans 3 days, and we are required to have 3 different bridesmaid dresses, which have cost me $700, plus $200 for alterations. Makeup for the weekend is $225 per person, and I haven't even bought my shoes or jewelry yet. On top of that, she is requiring us to have specific hairstyles that would require hair extensions, which would cost me at least $200. Financially, this is becoming too much for me. I know I agreed to be her bridesmaid, and I will fulfill my duties during the wedding, but going to Chicago and spending all that additional money? is something I am no longer willing or able to do. I won't be asking for my portion of the Airbnb back because that was a contribution I made willingly. I have yet to tell her that I won't be going to Chicago, but am I the a-hole for not going? Up until now, I have attended and participated in every way as a bridesmaid and have been there whenever she needed me, but this trip is just too much. Now for the top comment before reading the updates. Info. Did you talk to her about it becoming a financial burden for you? And if so, did she try to accommodate some of the costs for you? I have talked to her about the change in my financial situation, mostly because of a job change and also unexpected health costs for a health condition. She did help with the dress alterations by sending me $50, so that made my contribution $200. Every help counts, and I deeply appreciate it. However, it still doesn't change that Chicago is a stretch for me. Not the a-hole. I would dip out of being a bridesmaid altogether if I were you. Who in the heck has a 3-day wedding? Nobody can be that important to have 3 days dedicated to a matrimony. I won't lie, I'm no longer excited for it, but because I've already spent so much, I don't see myself dropping out. She is also still my best friend, and I can also acknowledge that this has been a bit much for me, and I can't do it all. You can only do what you can do. If this has been a financial strain, you need to let her know. Hopefully she is understanding. Now for the first update months later. For my friend's 3-day wedding, I had to buy 3 different dresses, including alterations and specific shoes, which totaled over $700. She also wanted specific hairstyles for each day. Unfortunately, starting in March, my hair began to deteriorate. Due to health reasons, my hair was falling out in chunks, and in May, I made the difficult decision to cut it. I told the bride about my decision 2 weeks before the wedding, and she didn't say anything negative at the time. The following week, she came over to my house, and just as she was about to leave, he brought up her concerns about my haircut. I reassured her that it would still look good, even though I wouldn't be uniform with the other bridesmaids. The next day, I received this message. After our recent conversations, I'd like to remind you of my boundaries. I've been very accommodating and graceful, but I can't allow you to disrespect me. As you know, my wedding has been something I've dreamt of for many years. My husband and I have invested a lot of money into the video and photos of this day, and as we reflect on this day in the future, we want to see our vision reflected in the memories. Since I asked each of you to be bridesmaids, I've been very clear and communicative in my requests. The timing of your decision to cut your hair and not inform me in advance is very upsetting to me. I would have felt respected if you had communicated with me more than a week prior to the wedding, so we could have worked together to find a collaborative solution. Your inconsistencies have concerned me, and while I sympathize with your health concerns, I'm not willing to compromise my vision to accommodate you or anyone else when you could have informed me in advance, and we could have found a better solution. Since this is something you can no longer fully commit to, I need you to please step down from participating in my wedding. This was 3 days before the wedding. I immediately sent her and her husband an invoice, asking them to reimburse me for the dresses and shoes, keeping in mind that one of the dresses is still in her possession, even though I paid for it. Neither of them replied, so I decided to take it to court. I was told I was inconsistent and selfish after I had spent the past 2 weeks helping her plan the wedding shower. I worked with another bridesmaid to surprise her with a bridal shower after our bachelorette trip had to be canceled. I spent hours helping her with wedding details. When she asked me to help her tone up before the wedding, I sent her a personalized workout program and even went with her to the gym to show her the ropes. When I agreed to be her bridesmaid, I was more than willing to oblige with what she asked, even if it required a lot of time and money. So, am I the a-hole for taking her to court because she kicked me out for cutting my hair? Not the a-hole. Should have had a lawsuit served to her at the altar. I'm an attorney. I know process servers who would do this without a single heartbeat change. Not the a-hole. Not one bit. I can't allow you to disrespect me. And then she turns around and utterly disrespects you and your friendship. What a horrible, heartless friend she is. You've done your absolute best to be involved with her wedding and bridal shower, and helping her so much in addition to paying hundreds for your dresses, etc., and she kicks you out because of your hair, for which you have an extremely valid reason for cutting. And even if you didn't, it'd still be absolutely ridiculous for her to do and say all this. I'm baffled. I can only imagine how you're feeling. All the best to you. Also, she sees her wedding as a vision. Lol, the delusion. Last update. This has been a long time coming. I've had a lot of people reach out to me asking about the results of the case. Unfortunately, I could no longer post comments on my previous post, so I figured I would wait until everything was finalized to update everyone all at once. In December 2021, I received a notification that a court date had been set for February 7th, 2022. The hearing would be virtual, and since it was small claims court, we would represent ourselves. I began gathering my evidence and created a virtual file, which I shared with the court and with her 7 days before the hearing. On the day of the hearing, she did show up. We were given the chance to settle, but that was unsuccessful. When we returned to the hearing, I found out that she had also made a virtual file with her evidence, but had never shared it with me. The court then made her send it over, and what a surprise I had. She had copied my entire format for presenting evidence. Keep in mind, this was a format I had created. She didn't even have the decency, or brain cells, to come up with something herself. The hearing proceeded, and we were both given the chance to share our sides. I won't go into the details, but the whole thing lasted about 10 to 15 minutes. In my state, they do not give you the verdict right away. It can take up to 90 days. And so, I waited, and waited, and waited, and waited. Then yesterday, May 5th, almost 90 days later, I finally got the verdict. I won. She has been ordered to pay me $808.94 for the dresses and shoes. I have to return 2 dresses and the shoes I still have to her. The verdict goes into effect on May 30th. I don't see her appealing it. Fingers crossed that she doesn't. All in all, I am very happy with the outcome and so ready to close this chapter. Thank you to everyone who has been so invested in this with me. I hope this was the season finale you were looking forward to. I'm so glad for you. In the first place, you had to cut your hair for health reasons, and your friend was more concerned about the vision of her perfect wedding than your health. I'm sure there could have been some solution, like hair extensions or a wig, if you had agreed to that. Instead, she just kicked you out. It's only right that you got reimbursed for all that money. Wigs are expensive, and so is installing them. In my opinion, this was a blessing in disguise. She wasn't interested in having a fun, loving wedding with friends and family. She was putting on a spectacle, a fantasy wedding where she wanted to portray perfection, kind of like a Facebook wedding. I can't imagine being part of a super scripted production would have been much fun.